Welcome to Public Health Matters, the show that addresses public health issues that matter the most to the citizens of Harford County. Real issues, real people, and the information you need to know.
Hello, I'm Susan Kelly, Harford County Health Officer, and your host for today's Public Health Matters, the show that takes a closer look at the public health issues that matter the most to the citizens of Harford County. In the world of social media, children have access to the internet with the touch of their fingers and could find themselves in trouble. It's important to inform our children and educate ourselves of the increasing digital safety concerns. Joining me today are Lieutenant Matthew Kale from the Maryland State Police. He is the commander of the Computer Crime Section and Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and Lieutenant Vito Menzel of the Harford County Child Advocacy Center. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being with us today. Lieutenant Kale and Lieutenant Menzel, can you please tell me and explain the roles that you have in your organizations?
Yes, with the Maryland State Police, we have what's called the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and the Maryland State Police is the lead agency for the task force in the state of Maryland. And we're one of 61 task forces across the country that was initially formed by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention program through Department of Justice. And through Maryland, the Maryland State Police, we have affiliate agencies throughout the entire state of our local and federal law enforcement partners and local and federal prosecutors. And these affiliate agencies we work with on a daily basis to help combat internet-related crime and to help to keep children safe. And one of our affiliate agencies is the Harford County Child Advocacy Center and the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, so Lieutenant Menzel, maybe you can pick it up from there.
Sure. I'm an employee of the Harford County Sheriff's Office, and it's in that capacity that I serve as Program Director for the Child Advocacy Center. So for your viewers who might not be familiar with CACs, as we refer to them, CACs are essentially child-friendly places that combine the multidisciplinary resources of prosecution, child protective services, law enforcement, victim advocates, medical and mental health providers, all for the purposes of the prevention, intervention, and investigation of child maltreatment cases. So here in Harford County, our CAC was formed over 20 years ago in 1993, and together we combine the resources of the Harford County Department of Social Services, the Harford County State's Attorney's Office, the allied law enforcement agencies of Aberdeen, Bel Air, Havre de Grace Police Departments, the Maryland State Police, the Harford County Sheriff's Office. We work in concert with a local pediatrician, and Family and Children's Services of Central Maryland act as our therapy provider. We are an ICAC affiliate, as Lieutenant Kale mentioned, and ICACs and CACs are a perfect partnership because of the crimes that we need to investigate together.
I'm very impressed. I really didn't know the extent of involvement in Harford County. That really is very good information to be shared with the public. Lieutenant Kale, can you explain what is a technology-facilitated crime?
A technology-facilitated crime would be pretty much any crime that's involving the internet. The internet knows no boundaries. So the crimes of years ago, when we added the internet in, we basically have the fraud that's occurring online. We have the child exploitation that's occurring online. We have drug-related crimes where the internet is being utilized. So any crime nowadays can be facilitated through technology, and we have that technology at our fingertips through the use of smartphones, tablets, laptops. You know, we used to rely heavily years ago on desktop computers, but now we take it with us everywhere, the technology.
Yeah. We wouldn't be having this conversation 20 years ago. Things have just accelerated so quickly. What is the prevalence in Maryland and in Harford County? So, Lieutenant Kale, you want to talk about Maryland?
In Maryland, as related to child exploitation, we receive annually approximately 1,500 tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where they receive their tips from citizens, internet service providers throughout the country, and we see every year that the tips increase. And the Maryland State Police receives those tips. We analyze the tips, review them, and then we investigate those tips either by the Maryland State Police, or we send them out to our affiliate ICAC members throughout the state of Maryland. The crimes utilizing the technology just have exploded, with the internet.
And how do people report tips or provide tips?
You can provide a tip. You can go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You can make a tip there. You can contact your local or state law enforcement or federal law enforcement agency and make that tip. And basically, the information will be followed up on.
No wrong door in this case. Just get the information out.
Just get the information out.
Okay. Lieutenant Menzel?
So here in Harford County, last year, for example, the CAC handled about 473 cases. 62 of those cases were specifically designated as technology-facilitated crimes against kids. I would like to say, though, that number probably doesn't accurately represent all of the cases of child maltreatment that technology was a factor. Because of the proliferation of devices and the convergence of technologies, every child abuse case now has an element of technology-facilitated crimes, just because everyone has a cell phone in their pocket. In the old days, when someone abused a child, they didn't necessarily have the computer up and running, but now they have a cell phone. It's very easy for them to take a video, take a picture, use it to communicate, to use social media to access, manipulate, or target a child. So it does bring them all in together. The cases that we see the most of here in Harford County, we see a lot of sexting related cases where an image has gone viral, sometimes in a school or in a community, and it's called to our attention. We see a lot of peer-to-peer download cases that are referred to us as a cyber tip, or the sex abuse cases where technology is a factor. Those would be the majority of the ones that we see. We get referrals of child abuse that could be technology-facilitated crimes against kids, either through direct referrals to the Department of Social Services, Child Protective Services, as a call for service to one of our local law enforcement agencies here in the county, or we also receive tips that are forwarded to the Maryland ICAC Task Force, and then when they designate that it occurred in Harford County, it's forwarded to our affiliate for investigation, and we are the affiliate agency here.
Well, as a follow-up to that, how specifically are kids getting into trouble? I know that you touched on it with your last response, but can you be a little bit more specific?
Sure. It kind of breaks, when we do these presentations in the community, we kind of instruct people that it breaks across 4 basic lines. The first one is loss of privacy. Anything you put on the internet can be seen by anyone, anywhere, anytime. Sometimes regardless of what you think your privacy settings are locked down to. A lot of people are surprised at what we have access to just as investigators through no special court orders or any kind of special law enforcement access, just general knowledge. And our kids are increasingly living their lives online, so they are putting, everything on there. They're documenting their entire existence online. So with that sharing comes a lot of benefits. They're able to share their creativity and their passions and things like that, but it also comes with a loss of privacy. There's also graphic content online. There's a lot of violent images online. There's a lot of pornography online, including child pornography. And a lot of that child pornography sort of feeds predators, and unfortunately a lot of kids unwittingly may be generating that child pornography themselves through sexting or something like that. There are also online predators out there that are looking to harm our children. Here in Harford County, we just, we are always doing operations. We just recently did one the other week where we had a predator show up at a public park expecting to have sex with a 13-year-old child that turned out to be one of our undercover investigators, and that's fairly routine investigation for us. And then the final one would be cyberbullying, harassment, and stalking. So generally all of these are interrelated. So with that loss of privacy and that sharing of graphic content, sometimes people are exposed to bullies and to predators, and they're cyberbullied or they're harassed or they're stalked by someone because of that, and they use that the information that this person shared against them to portray them in a negative light or embarrass them or something like that.
Well, Lieutenant Gale, we talk primarily about cell phones, but what other digital devices are involved with these issues?
Gaming systems. A lot of times children will get onto a game site and interact with other individuals through an internet connection for that game and play the game, in a team environment. And parents don't know who children are communicating with. These individuals are being invited into the child's house, and the parents are, unaware of this, who they're communicating with. Years ago, we used to caution children, about stranger danger, be careful who you talk to. But now the internet, like I said earlier, has no boundaries, and we're inviting it into our homes. And parents need to take that into consideration and try to take some control of that. Also through the use of, tablet devices, and just different sites online where people interact through chat rooms, that children have access to a variety of different things.
And I was going to say, you'd say parents need to be, involved, need to be, alert to these things, but I'm a grandparent, my children are adults, but I tell you, the kids know more than I do. And I think you have some information about the lingo that kids use that maybe parents ought to be aware of,
Sure.
especially, with the sexting problem that has surfaced.
Yeah, and just to follow up on Matt's response there, Lieutenant Gale's response there, parents, need to understand what devices kids have access to in the house. Gaming systems was one that he mentioned is commonly overlooked. Also, parents have to remember we all have that drawer of old cell phones now that might not be connected to a cellular provider, but most of them are Wi-Fi enabled. So at the CAC, we've had instances where parents have intervened appropriately, taking the child's devices away to try and stop contact or something like that, but they forgot about that iPod Touch that, to them is just a music player, but it has Wi-Fi access, or there's old cell phones in that drawer that child has then pulled out and used to access the internet to do something like that. Parents need to be vigilant. As you mentioned, there are different signs, and there is a lingo associated with sexting. I believe there's going to be a graphic up on the screen that'll show that. When we do these presentations in the community, I always tell people, I'd love to be able to give you the internet glossary of sexting language, but the reality is, it's like slang. It's constantly changing. So the phrases that are up in this graphic now are known. They might change over the course of time. So internet search engines are your friend. If you see something in the chat logs of your child's phone that troubles you, or it's an abbreviation or some sort of thing that keeps popping up that you're not aware of, Google it. Enter it into a search engine and see what it might mean. You'll notice on the graphic that a high number of them directly relate to keeping parents clueless. In fact, I think that's one of them, keeping parents clueless. That, parent over the shoulder, parent in the room, parents gone, parents not watching, things like that. The kids are very aware that they're being watched by mom and dad, and they use these sort of abbreviations to kind of keep parents out of the loop.
Yeah, kids are much more tech savvy than most of the parents. I know that for sure. Talk a little bit about sexting and child pornography.
Sure. So as Matt mentioned, all the different devices that they have access to, all of those have legitimate uses, but they're also ripe for abuse. And one of the big abuses we see, particularly with mobile devices, is sexting. And sexting is basically the sharing of explicit text, images, or videos between mobile devices. That's what a lot of our kids, have fortunately fallen victim to. The most recent studies about sexting came from Drexel University in 2014, and what we learned from that study was kind of what we already knew nationally. About half of the kids, about 54% of them, admitted to sexting in one way, shape, or form. 28% of those kids, so roughly a third of children, admitted to sending images or videos. About 72% of the kids admitted that they knew someone who had suffered negative consequences as a result of sexting, but it didn't alter their behavior in any way, shape, or form. Only 2% of those children ever bothered to notify a responsible adult that this was going on. And then probably the most troubling, and leading into your question, is about 61% of the kids were unaware that what they were doing with sexting could have been considered child pornography. So here in Harford County, the way that plays out for us is in a couple of different ways. Sometimes we have a child that just shares a nude image, and that nude image may not necessarily meet the qualifications of child pornography, and we'll talk about what is and what isn't in a minute. When that image goes viral and that child is bullied and shamed at school, and the parents come searching for help, there's going to be a couple things, we're going to apply every resource we can to help them, but there's going to be a couple things we probably can't do. One is probably we're never going to be able to recover that image completely from the internet. It's out there forever for everyone to see. And two, we're probably not going to be able to charge anybody with child pornography charges related to that if it's just a nude image. The laws in Maryland are very specific about what is and what isn't child pornography. Then we see a different type of case study where you may have a child that shares a different type of image, not just a nude image, but maybe an image that depicts something else. And they will have unwittingly just committed the crimes of manufacturing and distributing child pornography. So we have a lot of kids out there that share these images and don't even realize, the scope of the trouble they could be in. So I don't know if Matt wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah, maybe you can talk about in Maryland what
Well,
is considered child pornography.
One of the things that we also have seen an uptick in, Susan, is sextortion. It's where individuals engage in the sexting or social media where they ask for a explicit photo of someone, and then that individual, because they may not know who they're communicating with online, uses that photo to extort more photos from that person who now is going to become a victim, an unknowing victim, and the content continues to get more graphic each time with each picture. We've had instances in Maryland where children have committed suicide because they have no place to go, where they feel trapped if they don't send this image that that these individuals are threatening to release the images that they've already sent to other members in their social media networks, their parents, their friends, their family, and so the children oftentimes feel trapped. So that's one thing that we are seeing an uptick in. As far as the child pornography laws in the state of Maryland, a minor engaged in the sadomasochistic abuse, sexual conduct or sexual contact, and on the federal side we see it as it could be a nude image. It's a lewd and lascivious display of body parts, and these children are being victimized, and it's really disturbing, some of the content that our investigators see on a daily basis.
So what laws apply to someone who actually receives these images, particularly if they have asked for them?
Well, we have manufacturing, distribution, possession laws on the state side, and then on the federal side, there's a variety of laws also that deal with the interstate nexus, and we have the sexual solicitation of minors, that the laws that revolve around that statute. So there's several statutes that we work within that assist us with combating the sexually explicit crimes online.
Specifically, the questions we get related to that when we do our digital safety presentations in the community, people want to know, all right, so my child, they're included on a group text, or someone out of the blue sends them an image that they didn't solicit and they bring it to me. What do I do? What laws apply? A lot of parents are afraid to report because they're afraid of getting an otherwise good child in trouble. So it's important to understand those laws. So in Maryland, if you immediately delete it from that device and or report it to law enforcement, it's probably going to be what we call an affirmative defense and would be looked at as no crime. A lot of parents say, well, can we just delete it and not notify the police? Yes. The reality is we want them to report that to us, though, for several reasons. One, if it's an image that's gone viral, chances are the trail of breadcrumbs is going to lead back to that device anyway. So I encourage parents to get out in front of it instead of waiting for us to knock on your door. Two, if it is an image that meets the criteria for child pornography, law enforcement needs to go out and be able to forensically remove those images from the device, forensically clean the device, and then we actually take those images, recover them, and submit them to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They operate a program called the Child Victim Identification Program, and basically they store all known images of child pornography, not as pictures, but as hash values, photographed DNA. So when law enforcement winds up having contact with a predator that has that image in their collection 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, they'll be able to verify that that is an image of an underage child, and Harford County Sheriff's Office has that victim. It allows them to prosecute the case in their jurisdiction, and also gives our victim a voice in the process, because they'll be contacted and notified that this person is going to trial resulting from possessing their image. So we definitely encourage parents to not delete and to report. If it's saved to a device or saved in any way, uploaded to a cloud, saved from the messaging application to the gallery of the phone, email, something like that, it could be looked at as misdemeanor possession of child pornography. And if it's forwarded to anyone else, it could be looked at as distribution of child pornography. So that's important to understand, because we've had some well-meaning, responsible adults fall victim to that when a child brings them an image and they tell that child, forward that to my email address because I'm going to call the police and I want to show them this image. Well, they've now made themselves sort of complicit in the distribution and possession of that child pornography image. So what we encourage people to do is leave it where it is on the device, notify law enforcement, let us come out and forensically remove it from that device for you, and we'll take it from there.
And you mentioned predators, but can you expand upon that a little bit more? Because we do know with sexting, there's pictures that go back and forth between social media groups to the peers, but then when you talk about predators, that really takes it to another level altogether.
Yeah, a lot of times these images start out between peers. Usually, one person sends it to one other person. It starts off that way, and then it that one person that was supposed to be shared privately. Usually, it's a boyfriend or girlfriend. Once it gets outside that first person, then it starts to travel around. And I think a lot of kids think, well, what's the big deal? If my friends see it, or a lot of them sort of have a little bit of a laissez-faire attitude about it. It's like, oh, if my friends see it, I'm not worried about it. But what concerns us is these images eventually travel, sometimes all around the world. We had an incident here in Harford County about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, where a bunch of young men, we believe, from a local high school created a Facebook page with the collected images of 12 to 13 underage girls that they had been trading and sharing and stuff like that the girls had created and shared themselves, given to their boyfriends, and the boys were trading them amongst each other. Well, because those went up on Facebook, Facebook very quickly took it down because it violated their policy. But because those were up on the internet, we have now found out that they exist on a image sharing website based out of Russia. Okay. So they've literally traveled around the world. And those girls are probably getting ready to graduate from high school, enter college, enter the workforce, and there's nothing anyone can ever do to recover those images totally, because even if we took down that Russian server, we don't know who's downloaded it to their device or downloaded it to their hard drive, or etc. So we're concerned about it getting in the hands of the end users, which are the predators, and that's how they access it.
When you talk about predators, you're talking about people, the end users, and they have this information in their possession. Then are they trying to make contact with the individual for face-to-face encounter as well? Or is that something totally different?
I think that it depends on how the interaction initially starts out online. I mean, there's individuals out there that are predators to try to groom children. They go through a grooming process where they try to befriend them. They look for individuals that may have some problems in their home life, that may have had a traumatic incident in their life that they're trying to figure out how they can sympathize with them and build a rapport with them, give them attention that they may not be receiving from someone else in the family. They try to step in and take that lead role where they befriend them. And the grooming process may take days, weeks, months, or years. We've had cases in the past where individuals have exchanged thousands of text messages, thousands of emails between each other before it got to the point where they had the opportunity to meet, or they set up that meeting where the child would leave the home and go and meet with these individuals, and obviously the child not knowing who the other individual is on the other side of that computer, because they keep a cloak of anonymity. These individuals try to harm these children, and that's what we see in some of these more serious cases with these predators, what we call sexual solicitation of minor type cases.
And what social media apps are the kids using? Because I know there are apps that I'm not generally familiar with, and I think we have a graphic for that as well.
Yeah, here in Harford County, most kids are on Facebook, and when we deal with parents on a daily basis, a lot of them feel comfortable that, I check my kid's Facebook page all the time, and I'm not seeing anything concerning. But that's the problem. Who else is on Facebook? Mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, teachers. So kids here in Harford County have migrated to other social media websites. What we've found in our talks is that middle school age kids have migrated to Snapchat, Instagram, and Kik for messaging. And then high school age kids are also migrating to Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter. And those are the big ones. And it's very telling that when we do these presentations for the kids, we always ask them, how many of you have social media accounts that your mom and dad are not aware of? And I'm always surprised at the number and at the honesty, but usually just about every hand in the room goes up. My mom doesn't know about my Snapchat account or my Instagram account. It may be the child's trying to hide it. It may also be that it's just something the child created on a whim and mom and dad aren't really in tune with what's going on there. But yeah, Snapchat, Instagram, Kik, and Twitter are the big ones here in Harford County right now.
So what can we do to protect our kids, and what advice would you give to parents?
The advice that I would give to parents is interact with your child. You have to be the parent. You have to take control of devices, something as simple as, keep the computer in a common area. Why does the child need a computer in their room? With the cell phone, maybe in the evening, okay, after a certain time, say, well, your cell phone is going to come into my room and we're going to let it stay in my room to charge. So nobody is texting that child in the middle of the night and the parents are sleeping, they don't know what's going on. And like we've seen that in those sextortion types of cases. So, take control, talk to your child, look for the signs. Is your child wanting to stay off electronic devices? Do they want to, where they're used to doing things, where they want to step away? Maybe that's a clue that there's a problem, somebody's harassing or bothering them. Basically, try to go through their phone with them, know what they're doing on their phone, know who their friends are, their online contacts. Digital and internet-related devices, with every good there comes a bad. But I think as parents, if we sit and talk to our children and just have conversations with them and talk to them about internet safety, and we'll have a list of resources that we'll provide here at the end of the presentation. But check into those resources, educate yourself, educate others, contact your local law enforcement, your state law enforcement, ask for presentations to come out to your community so we can engage the community and talk about these types of issues.
Okay. Well, one last question before we wrap up today. Talk about the Child Advocacy Center and their involvement.
Certainly. Again, the Child Advocacy Center is a community resource. We're located on Main Street in Bel Air, directly next to the Armory, and we handle all types of child maltreatment cases. We do offer a digital safety seminar. We've presented it all over the community here in Harford County, in schools and churches and youth groups. We've taken it outside of the county for other presentations, and we're always available. I think our graphic is up with our website, harfordcac.org. If you hit us up through the Contact Us page, we'll be happy to bring it to your location.
Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. I would like to thank my guests on today's show, Lieutenant Vito Menzel and Lieutenant Matthew Kale. If you would like more information on digital safety, please refer to the resource page after this program. Thank you for watching today. Please join us next time for another important health issue that matters the most to the citizens of Harford County. I'm Susan Kelly, your host for Public Health Matters.
You've been watching Public Health Matters, brought to you as a public service by Harford Cable Network, your county connection.